What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another Beyond the Arc episode. Today, we're going to be talking about, since the football season's right around the corner, I just had my fantasy football draft. Here's a little bit of insight as to 10 players that you should absolutely avoid if you can, and then 10 players that you should look to draft if they fall into you. So without further ado, let's jump right on into this. So let's start with a player that is high on a lot of people's boards, but on my board, he's not super high, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. I understand, second-year player. I understand his dad is a Hall of Fame receiver, but I don't trust the Arizona Cardinals offense at all. Nothing changed, and too many additions, I don't trust Kyler Murray at quarterback. I think he spends too much time, playing the video games, and honestly, I don't love small quarterbacks either. Of course, in prior videos, I've talked about Bryce Young and all that, but I think that Kyler Murray just isn't the number one guy. I mean, he's got James Conner, he has Trey McBride, and he's got Marvin Harrison Jr. How is that not an explosive offense? That should be a damn good offense, but it's just not. It's a weak offense, honestly. The O-line is so-so, but this year, they spent all their money on defense, meaning they trust the offense. But the offensive coordinator is, so far, I haven't seen anything to be impressed by. So I'm at all cost avoiding Marvin Harrison Jr., especially since he's going, right around that third round mark era. I would not draft him. I did not draft him. I'll go over my team with y'all here in a little bit, but starting off, it is fading away from Marvin Harrison Jr. Since we're talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., next up on the list is Kyler Murray for the same exact reasons. Offensive coordinator did not change. I do not like their offense. I don't think it's a move the ball, down the field kind of offense. I think if they had a good OC, and a big prediction that I have is that Mike McDaniel, the head coach for the Dolphins, in the future, he's going to get fired from the Dolphins job. I just think that there's just too much going on. There's too much drama over there right now. So he's going to eventually get fired, and he'll get hired for the Cardinals, hopefully as their OC, and turn that offense around. Because that's one thing Mike McDaniels can do. He can coach offensive football. The issue is the defensive side of the ball that the Dolphins have a lot of problems. So I'm fading away from Kyler Murray, and then I'm making the bold prediction that Mike McDaniel will become the next offensive coordinator of the Arizona Cardinals, if not the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. All right, so we did one pairing of quarterback and receiver. I got another pairing of quarterback and receiver here, starting off with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is a quarterback that they just lost their best offensive lineman in Tristan Wirfs. He's going to be out for some time. When you don't have your offensive line at full chemistry and everything, that's when things can start going wrong. That's where I would be looking to avoid Baker. He just got paid. I understand he is a killer quarterback when the offensive line is healthy. They have tons of weapons over there, but also Rachaad White is injured as well. He's going to miss some time. I understand they still have Bucky Irving there. They still, of course, have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They just drafted Ibuka from Ohio State. I drafted Ibuka super late in the draft, just as he's a rookie, kind of in a spot where I needed a backup receiver, like a third or fourth option. And hopefully he explodes for them, and he does his thing, and I'm proven wrong by this, but I would be avoiding Baker Mayfield if I was you, especially since there's a lot of quarterbacks that are going to be decent and be able to put up decent figures here. So yeah, I would be fading Baker Mayfield. Going alongside Baker, I think that it's about time that Mr. 1000 is done. That being said, I am fading Mike Evans. Mike Evans might give you some consistency, and even though he doesn't get you 1,000 yards, could still get you some decent production, especially if he falls in your draft. But if you're looking to draft him high, I would not. I think there's too many, this year specifically, I think there's so many good receivers, right? Every team seems to have a good, decent number one option at least, right? Even the bad teams, the Cleveland Browns have Jerry Jeudy. Just like I said before, the Buccaneers have a plethora of of weapons there. The Detroit Lions have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, if you just go down the list of all the NFL teams, each one has their own dynamic number one receiver. So there's going to be ample opportunity for plenty of receivers down the road that I think you can wait on. I think this year, my focus right off the bat was kind of focusing running back. One of the players that I went with that was super high was Jahmyr Gibbs. He was my first. I think I'd pick 7, and he fell one slot to me, and I wanted a running back first round. So I went with Jahmyr Gibbs there. But yeah, I'm fading Mike Evans. Keep him away from me. Now moving on, and I forgot to mention this in the first section, although Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison I'm avoiding, I'm also going to throw James Conner into that mix. I just do not trust this offense whatsoever. I really don't. James Conner is a player who he can put up consistent numbers for you, sure, but it's not going to be these stellar numbers. And maybe that's all you're looking for. Maybe he fell to you in your draft. He's your second or third running back. You put him into flex position or your running back 2. You don't really have to worry about him a whole lot. But I personally, not a big fan of drafting anything Arizona Cardinals this year because of their offensive situation. Another guy I'm looking to fade in the same division is Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, I don't think that he was worth the money. I would have instead saved my money and just done exactly what you did with Brock Purdy. You just draft a QB. Because I think quarterbacks in the Niners offense are similar, in that Shanahan offense, are similar to what it seems the Vikings are able to do with Kevin O'Connell, where they can put pretty much any mid-tier to a little bit above mid-tier quarterback, and they're going to be decent, i.e., Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo, etc. They look, even like Josh Dobbs had a few good games for the Niners that you could be looking at. You don't necessarily need this superstar quarterback there, or you don't need a super expensive quarterback there when all your money's going elsewhere, into Trent Williams, into Christian McCaffrey, everything else. Now, also what I will say is, Kyle Shanahan came forward and stated that this year reminds him a lot of like the 2018 Niners when they were bad. They were terrible. So he's setting the expectation super low. Now, I understand they're probably going to beat that expectation, especially in this division where they got to play the Cardinals twice a year. They got to play the Seahawks twice a year. And then who knows what's up with the Rams with Matthew Stafford and his injury history. But right now he's got a tweaked back. But still, the rest of that team looks pretty darn good. Brock Purdy's just somebody I'm avoiding. Ayuk is not starting the season with them. He's on the PUP list. Ricky Pearsall is your number one option right now. Can you really trust him as a number one receiver? George Kittle is getting older in age. Christian McCaffrey is this injury-prone player. I still, of course, question the offensive line outside of Trent Williams. The defense is going to be decent because they got Robert Saleh, but it's going to take time for him to get his policies in place. So I am avoiding everything 49ers as well. Speaking of avoiding everything 49ers, I am putting Christian McCaffrey on this list. Just kind of like I said before, he is a player that injury prone. He's getting up there in age, a kind of guy that could be out 2 games or could be out 8 games. We don't really know. And I think he's just out of that prime. He's past that point where he's going to be this super dominant running back, especially when there's the Saquons and the James Cook and the Jahmyr Gibbs and everything, Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones out there. Do you really need to be drafting Christian McCaffrey? And then same thing with receivers. You have the Jamar Chases in that area and the CeeDee Lambs in that area and the Amon-Ra's in that area of drafting. Do you need to be drafting Christian McCaffrey? He's somebody that I completely avoided. I did not touch in my fantasy draft. Next up is a player that these next 3 players are all on relatively bottom of the league or bottom half of the league teams. This being Garrett Wilson. I don't love the pass game for the Jets. Rumors been coming out in the Jets practice that Justin Fields can't really throw a ball too well. They don't have a decent backup over there. Breece Hall is somebody I'm avoiding. Garrett Wilson for sure, though, I am avoiding. On the flip side, Justin Fields I'll get into in a minute, but there's a reason that I would be taking Justin Fields and avoiding Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, I just don't think he's going to get the ball too much. I don't think they're going to be on offense too much, to be honest. I think it's going to be a situation similar to like the Steelers. The pass game wasn't going, but the run game was actually pretty decent with the small starts that Justin Fields had. Same thing with him in Chicago. His run game, solid. His pass game, absolutely not. Just avoid it. So, especially with Garrett Wilson being such a high productive player, I mean, if they were midseason to make an acquisition to go get a quarterback like a Kirk Cousins, maybe I would take a swing on somebody like Garrett Wilson. But I think if you are drafting Garrett Wilson, you should look at trying to flip him, right? Get him when you can, especially if he falls, and then go to a team that desperately needs a receiver in your fantasy league and say, hey, I got Garrett Wilson available. What are we talking? At least throw the idea out there. Next up here, I have Chris Olave. Chris Olave is a good receiver, don't get me wrong. But he would be so much better if he was on any other team because Spencer Rattler is your starting QB week 1. Your backup option is like Tyler Shuck and Hainer. Like all three of those quarterback options are awful. I am not impressed so far of what I've seen in preseason from Tyler Shuck. So I'm avoiding everything Saints. The only Saint I would consider drafting would be Alvin Kamara. But Chris Olave, absolutely not, because you have to trust the QB there to get your wide receiver the ball. Now, to be frank, he's probably going to be the only one getting the ball, him and Kamara. But is he really going to have time to get separation downfield? The offensive line is shaky. The run game, yeah, it's got Kamara, so that's solid. But the quarterback himself is not going to be making these game-winning throws. So is he really going to get the ball down to Chris Olave for some 60-yard touchdown? Plus, since he's the only, I understand they have Rashid Shaheed over there too, but realistically, Chris Olave is the only great receiver over there, and he's just going to be getting double coverage all week. The one bright spot I'll say about Chris Olave is the division. Having to play the Falcons twice, having to play the Panthers twice, right? That gives you opportunity. That division is wide open. So that is what I'll say is there is a bright spot there where the corners for Atlanta are not great. So the pass game you might have a couple weeks there where you're like, okay, I can start Chris Olave. I'm not worried, something like that. The last player I'm looking to avoid, it is Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, I don't trust it. He's super skinny, and that isn't a problem for a receiver for me. I'm a big fan of guys like Devontae Smith, Jameson Williams, right? Skinny, speedy receivers, and I could see that being Travis Hunter. But you're going to be playing both sides of the ball. So far, I have not been impressed with a lot of the routes that I'm seeing him run. So, and maybe that's because of the fact that there was lack of practice there in Colorado because he had to play both sides of the ball. Because there was so much, I just don't think year one Travis Hunter is a fantasy player I would be looking to draft. Sure, if it's round 10 and it's a late flyer, go ahead, take him. But if you're looking to draft him in round 6, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not looking to touch Travis Hunter. Just in my opinion. And like I said, I'm going to be going over my fantasy team so that I can really give you guys just a look of what I drafted specifically. So players, we just talked about all the players to avoid. Now I'm going to talk about players you should be looking at. This is all over the map. It's not any specific order or anything, but if this player is available to you and you need this position, I would highly recommend going and getting this guy. Starting off, I had just talked about how we're avoiding Garrett Wilson, but this time I'm going to talk about why you should draft Justin Fields late. He's somebody that in Chicago was able to put up good rushing numbers. He, especially in a half PPR league where receivers aren't as valuable, you should be looking at like a Justin Fields, because the rushing touchdowns, the rushing attempts, him just grabbing some yards here and there is going to help you. There were weeks in Chicago where he was putting up like 25 points in fantasy. He's going to be getting the ball in his hands every snap. Whether or not he makes a smart decision with that, that's, I think that him with his legs definitely is a smart enough decision. And I want to see him on a team in the future where they can utilize him like a Taysom Hill, but more at like running back, where Justin Fields is on the field with like a Baker Mayfield, for example. And the two of them, you might get a throw attempt from Justin Fields. You might get a throw attempt from Baker. Baker might hand the ball off to Justin Fields. Some flea flicker options and all that. That would be an insane world to watch. So I would draft Justin Fields if it was late in the draft. You need a QB. You focused heavy on those skill positions first. You went running back, receiver, tight end, etc. You need that quarterback. So you're like, okay, Justin Fields, good option. Another guy I would be looking to draft, and I know some people aren't, it's Drake London. The reason that you should draft on NFL.com literally says to avoid Drake London. I'm going to say the opposite, because Drake London is a guy that Michael Penix, throughout training camp, throughout preseason, Drake London has been his number one option. Even past that, right now, Darnell Mooney is listed as questionable. So if he misses a handful of games, Drake London's going to be getting all the balls over there. They keep saying that they're going to get Kyle Pitts involved, but realistically, they've been saying that since he came into the league. Drake London is the number one option there. Maybe Bijan and Drake London, 1A, 1B, for sure. That's why I avoided Bijan, honestly, because, obviously I had the 7th overall pick in our draft, but so he wasn't available for me anyways. But still, because of how high his career's been projected, and it's just been not a disappointment per se, but like just hasn't reached the full expectation yet. So I don't know if it's worth drafting him super high, especially when his counterpart, Drake London, might be getting the ball a lot. Penix has a cannon of an arm, and he can throw the ball, decently accurate. So, and then having those other players there, the Kyle Pitts, the Darnell Mooney, the Bijan Robinson, is only going to draw attention away from Drake London to then get one-on-ones and separation downfield. So that's somebody that Drake London is high on my list to draft. Next guy on my list, it's Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts, although I don't think he's going to be this superstar tight end and everything like that, there's a big drop-off in tight end. There's like Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, and then third tight end is way down here. That's what I would say. The George Kittles, the Travis Kelce's, etc. Now, I do have a couple tight ends that I think will rise on that list, and one of those is specifically Kyle Pitts, because that explosive offense. I think that they are ready to kind of take that next step in this explosive offense idea. They're going to be similar to like a summer league team NBA League Pass team in the NBA, that like they might not be the best team, but they're going to be a fun watch. They're going to be a young and gun team. And that's what I see with this Atlanta Falcons is young and gun teams put up fantasy points. I have that with like Carolina also. I think they're going to be a fun team. I think they got a lot of weapons over there, whole 9 yards. But yeah, I would draft Kyle Pitts, Drake London. Kyle Pitts, unfortunately, got snagged right after I was supposed to pick. Right before I was supposed to pick, sorry. Somebody drafted Kyle Pitts when I was going to take him. But next up on this list, I have teammates here. First up is Patrick Mahomes. I really think after all like the discredit, Patrick Mahomes being ranked the 4th best QB in the league, everyone kind of doubting. He had a down season this year, a lot of doubts on him specifically. I think this is the year we might see an MVP Mahomes. It's going to be one of those years that he's like All right, you guys want to keep like talking and everything. I'm only going to give you a reason to not talk anymore. I'm going to go out and win MVP. And that he's going to go out and ball out. He's going to be slinging it. In the preseason, he was chucking it downfield. He was playing deep drives into his preseason games. So I would be looking at drafting Patrick Mahomes if he's available. Again, wanted him in my league. He got drafted before I looked to draft him. His teammate, Travis Kelce. Again, a player on NFL.com that people said to avoid, I'm looking to draft. Travis Kelce is one of those guys. Travis Kelce, yeah, obviously he just got engaged. Everyone's like, oh, he's not focused on football. He's been acting, whole 9 yards. I think there's plenty of hours. He knows the game of football. He seems to be in the right place at the right time. Especially when Patrick Mahomes, I'm predicting for an MVP season, you know Travis Kelce's going to eat off that too. So he's going to get the ball. So I would be looking, and I did draft Travis Kelce in my league because I think that he is going to have not a resurgence of a career because he obviously had a good season last year, whole 9 yards, but I think he's going to have a top four tight end year. And that's just something that you're looking for in fantasy production is you want top tight end production. So next up here, another pair of teammates that I would be looking to draft. First one, and I might get a lot of hate for this one in the comments, it's Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is somebody that I think he's ready. I think he's going to take that next step. He's got that offensive coach in Ben Johnson that's only going to help him out. I understand there were definitely in training camp this year, there were some tough points to watch, right? There were some times where you question whether or not he was going to be the franchise QB. But what I will say is I think that was a necessity, similar to Bryce Young. Bryce Young came into the league and honestly had a pretty rough start to his career. He was somebody that it was so rough they benched him for Andy Dalton. Now, if you're benching a guy for Andy Dalton, he played pretty darn bad. So but then what happened? After the benching, he came back, last few games of the season, balled out. I think Caleb Williams needed to get torn down like that. And it only is going to showcase his character and who he will be as a quarterback if he bounces back from that. I think he will. I think he'll do just fine. He's somebody that I am looking to draft. Luckily, I got him in my league. Very excited about it. I'm ready for him to take that next step. His teammate, DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, a little bit older of a running back, but he's somebody that the offensive line, they spent a lot of money on. They got Joe Thuney, one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL right now. That offensive line was the pinnacle of what made Jahmyr Gibbs and DeMont over in Detroit when they had Ben Johnson elite. Is they had a great offensive line. And that's what Chicago's building right here. So that's where I think DeAndre Swift and Caleb Williams are going to be able to ball. The thing about Caleb Williams that's different from Jared Goff is mobility. Caleb Williams, he knows extends plays to a fault, which he'll need to learn. Extends plays. He can, at USC, he was able to create on his own, if that makes sense, and scramble around the pocket, go get that first down. I think that's only going to, Ben Johnson can just unlock Caleb Williams. And I think it'll take some time. Even if this season isn't fantastic, right? And I'm going to go through my fantasy team and give you guys the plan on Caleb Williams specifically. But Caleb Williams and DeAndre Swift, I am heavily going after because of that offensive line and the weapons around it. They have Cole Kmet over at tight end. They have Colson Loveland, who they just drafted. DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, DeAndre Swift, Caleb Williams, good O-line. Defense is solid. It's a little overrated, but it is solid. Yes, I am drafting DeAndre Swift. 3 more players left, and then we'll get into my fantasy team. A guy that is a big question mark, but I want to take the risk on, is George Pickens. George Pickens is a player that he's going to be alongside CeeDee Lamb. So he's not going to, most times he probably won't face the top tier corner for the defense, whoever he's playing against. That only opens up the opportunity because if George Pickens really is a number one option like he says he is, and he has numbers to kind of back it up. Now, if he really is the number one option like he says he is, then there should be no problem with him balling out against these tier 2 corners. Right? Same thing. The issue, of course, on the defense, they just traded Micah Parsons, whole 9 yards. But what I'll say, when Dak Prescott's healthy, they win football games. Dak right now is considered healthy. They have 2 number 1 receiver options. There is Javonte Williams is an okay running back. I think he'll be fine. He'll do enough. And then, of course, the O-line is not fantastic, but it's not terrible. It's about middle of the league, middle of the pack offensive line. The defense is going to be a problem, of course. And I don't love the Micah Parsons trade, but what I'll say is focusing on the offense, I think they're going to go up against bad defenses, the Washington Commanders. They're going to go up against, the New York Giants have terrible corners. They have a great front 7, but they have terrible corners. Meaning CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens can get separations on the outside. I mean, Dak can haul it downfield. Now, will he have enough time in the pocket because of that front 7? I guess we'll find out. But the secondary for the Eagles diminished too. But yeah, George Pickens is somebody that I'm going to be looking at for sure. I have 2 more players. Stephon Diggs is next up on our list. I think Stephon might come back as healthy as ever. He is somebody that is going to, the offensive line was invested in. The run game is going to be good. The receiving, he's the number 1 receiver over there. Drake May is a solid QB. The defense isn't bad either. I think Drake May and Stephon, especially since he has been putting in work in the offseason for sure. Been working out every day, working on that mobility, and really working on his game to get back to 100%. I think Stephon's going to be ready, especially if you can have him. Maybe you just put him on your bench for the first few weeks. You kind of test out the water, see how he does, especially since there are ample receivers in this year's fantasy class. I would look at drafting Stephon if you can. I understand the issue with his whole torn ACL and all that, but I would draft him and take the risk, especially if he is coming off your bench. Last but not least, I have Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams is a good draft pick in my opinion because Matthew Stafford's back. And you're like, well, they don't have a quarterback. They still have Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup. I understand he's not Matthew Stafford. I do have a bold prediction that if Stafford's injury continues, they're going to make a move and try and trade for a serviceable QB in somebody like Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins in there would do just fine. Right? Sean McVay is a great offensive mind, is going to be able to help Kirk Cousins, have a little bit of a resurgence. But even with Jimmy G running the show, that means they're probably going to focus a lot on the run game. The O-line is a little shaky, but check down merchant right there in Kyren Williams. That's going to be perfect because Jimmy Garoppolo facing a lot of pressure. He's going to dip the ball right over to Kyren. Easy little couple of yards right there, especially if you play in a full PPR league. Kyren Williams is a great offensive option for sure, especially since this year the running back room seemed a little dry, right? It was very top heavy. And then they reached a limit where it was like, oh, shoot, I don't have a running back 1. Kind of thing. So now I want to go over my fantasy football draft, right? Like I said, I had round 1, pick 7. So I'm going to go through my team and we'll start off top to bottom. I drafted Jahmyr Gibbs first overall with the 7th pick. Then I went and took, did I take Drake London next? Yeah, then I took Drake London. So I had a running back and a receiver. So it'll be easier to just read it top to bottom. My quarterback, I have 2 QBs. Caleb Williams is my starter week 1. They're playing Minnesota. The defense is questionable. Caleb Williams is going to be unlocked by Ben Johnson. I'm going to put all my eggs in Caleb Williams' basket right now. I do have a backup that's pretty serviceable as well, but I'll get to him. My starting running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs, they're playing Green Bay. Green Bay, of course, just traded for Micah Parsons, so the defense got better, but they did give up Kenny Clark, and the defense was kind of questionable before anyways. They lost Jair Alexander, so I think Jahmyr Gibbs will be fine, especially with the strength of the O-line of the Detroit Lions. My second running back that's starting is James Cook. James Cook playing Baltimore. This one's going to be a little bit of a risk because the defense of Baltimore is pretty darn good. The one issue with Baltimore's defense is their pass rush. They have this no-fly zone going on with the corners and the safeties there, but their pass rush, there is a bit of exposure right there. So I think that's where James Cook can kind of eat, especially with the threat of Josh Allen's running ability. It's only going to open up the field for James Cook. Like I said, Drake London is going to be my wide receiver 1 for this week. Tampa Bay is who he's playing. They have a bit of an issue on that corner of their corners and safeties, so I think Drake London is only going to eat. Next up on this list, I'm starting Terry McLaurin. They're playing they're playing New York. And the Giants, like I said before, have a great front seven, but a terrible secondary. So I think Terry's only going to eat. He just got paid. I think he's going to prove his worth because a lot of people were hating on that contract for him because it's a little expensive. Just as I stated before, my starting tight end is Travis Kelce. They'll be playing the Chargers, who have a good defense, but it's Travis Kelce, and I think Patrick Mahomes is having that MVP caliber season. At my flex, I might move this around a little bit, but I do want to see how week 1 plays out. I'm starting Zay Flowers. So if it's a high-scoring game, James Cook is having a good game, Zay Flowers having a good game, I'm happy. Bills, Ravens, I think it's going to be a run-heavy game because the receivers across the board for the Ravens and the Bills are good, not great. Right? Zay Flowers is a good receiver. Is he a number 1? I think this is going to be the season to really prove it if he does. But, of course, he's my flex, so I can adjust that for a receiver or a running back, especially as we get closer to that opening kickoff. I might switch that around. My starting defense and special teams is the Texans. The Texans defense, I mean, they got guys like Will Anderson, who's potential defensive player of the year. Of course, they're playing the Rams week 1. The Rams, like I said, Matthew Stafford's out. That offensive line's a bit shaky. It could get ugly early with the Rams, so that's why I'm starting the Texans defense. And then I also have Fairbairn, the kicker for the Texans as well. Hopefully week 1, high scoring option. I did not draft a backup kicker. I'm not really I think that kicker you could just kind of pick up on the waiver wire because they're kind of a shaky position anyways on whether or not. I mean, if Jason Sanders would have been available, the Dolphins kicker, but he's hurt right now, so I'm not drafting him. Let's go talk about my depth. Like I said before, I said to avoid Mike Evans, I drafted Egbuka. I think Egbuka is somebody that can come in and just prove that he was worth the draft pick that, they drafted him at. And he could get handed the keys from Mike Evans to be the next guy. I took another rookie here for depth at running back, and it's RJ Harvey. I was really impressed. He's a little bit of a speedy back. I'm going to be impressed to see what he can do against Tennessee. I'm not starting him week 1. It was between him and Zay Flowers pretty much. I do have a couple other guys I was considering at that flex spot, but I do want to go with the more veteran, proven player in Zay Flowers than somebody like RJ Harvey, who we don't know what he's like. Denver does have a really good O-line, though, so I am pretty happy with that. My backup QB, who I thought about starting, but I'm going to keep him on the bench for this week. It's Justin Herbert, Chargers QB. I don't necessarily love that draft pick, but he's a solid quarterback, somebody who has thrown for 5,000 yards in a season before. He does have a run-first coach. That's the only question mark I have on Justin Herbert, is because they're so run-heavy, is he going to be able to air out the ball enough? And also, I question the weapons they have over there. Of course, Ladd McConkey is cool. He's good. But your second receiver is like Quentin Johnston, and they signed Keenan Allen again. So we'll see. but having him as a backup is not a bad thing necessarily. I took a third rookie with my bench depth, and that's Tedero McMillan. McMillan, I think he's going to be the number one option over there for Carolina. I think he's a Mike Evans-esque receiver. So if Bryce Young get the ball out to him, he could ball out and end up being my starter. End up being a starter over someone like Terry if Terry's not performing. So my backup tight end, and this tight end is only 11% rostered by across what ESPN Fantasy is saying, across all fantasy leagues. It's Okonkwo, the tight end for the Titans. I think Cam Ward's going to utilize him a lot more than what's given credit for. I do think that Cam Ward has a cannon, and he's going to air out that ball. So somebody you should look to draft is definitely Calvin Ridley. But Okonkwo could be getting those, especially we play in a full PPR league. He could be a player that you look at and you say, not a bad option, needed a backup tight end. He's realistically only going to play a week or so, but if he balls out, there's only upside. Of course, week 1, they're playing Denver. There's no shot I'm starting that. But my backup, another backup running back I wanted somebody a bit of a veteran. Jaylen Warren was there. I snagged him. I don't love the Steelers' offense at all. The O-line is shaky. I'm just not in love with Aaron Rodgers, 41 years old, about to be 42, airing out the ball. But what I'll say is Jaylen Warren is the number one option over there. So why not? I needed some running back depth. So then there it is. Last but not least, with my last spot, I did take the Giants in defense and special teams for the very reason of that front seven. I think that front seven could dominate some O-lines. Although the corners and everything like that are questionable, that front seven could manhandle some O-lines. So somebody like, for instance, week 1, they play the Commanders. I think that offense is going to be too good. Jaden Daniels is too good to escape that. But the Cowboys, for example, right? If, like I said before, if Dak has time to throw downfield, it might be a bit of a problem. But if Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns and all them, and they just drafted very high in that first round, if they all go out there and ball out, and don't give them time. We're looking at Brian Burns, Abdul Carter was that high draft pick, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence. This is a disgusting front seven that they have. It's going to be super good. So that's only going to not give the quarterback that much time. Am I going to start him against the Eagles? No. Am I going to start him against the Commanders? Probably not. But this year, right, they play this year they play like teams like Indianapolis, they play Minnesota, they play Washington, Cleveland, Seattle, all bad like Cleveland. I'll probably start them against Cleveland, something like that. So for those reasons, I did draft those kind of guys. Now, players are still available. I'm going to keep my eye on in free agency. Somebody like Drake May is a question mark for me. I think that if he balls out, I might go snag him and drop somebody like Justin Herbert into the free agent pool. There's, of course, Sam Darnold is there. He was a quarterback. Again, last year I did the same thing where I focused on those skill positions first, drafted quarterback later. So Sam Darnold ended up being a QB that I grabbed. If he's somewhat decent, Matthew Stafford as well, if he's healthy, he's probably going to be a QB that I grab. And then skill positions, we're looking at somebody like Jerome Ford is available, Hollywood Brown's available, Adam Thielen, Rashid Shaheed, like I talked about earlier. Cade Otton was a tight end I was looking at instead of Okonkwo, but the missing piece of Tristan Wirfs as well as too many receivers might not be enough mouths to, there might be too many mouths to feed over there in Tampa Bay. So Jaden Higgins was another one. He is available right now. He's a free agent. He's a rookie. I'm interested to see how he does in the first few weeks, but I'm going to hold off on him for now because I have 3 rookies already, so I don't want to put too many rookies on my roster at once. So if you guys did enjoy this video, do me a huge favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment down below what draft pick you had in your fantasy league, and who was your biggest drop in your league? Like, was it a Christian McCaffrey, for example? Was it somebody that's, maybe a suspended player like Jordan Addison, or a, Rasheed Rice or something like that? Let me know in the comments down below. So without further ado, it's been another Beyond the Arc episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.